Welcome to UFO Buster Radio. This is Manny Moonraker, and I am here to say this is episode number 115, so let's cue the music. Hey, welcome to UFO Report number 115. I am your host, Manny Moonraker, and we have things to talk about. Basically, one article having to do with the Space Force and the Air Force. But of course, I've got some extra things that we need to talk about, like social media. I mean, if you're not following me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, you're missing out on things that happen in between shows, like the fact that we now have a mascot. A mascot that goes by the name of Bug, the UFO hunter. He's there on Instagram and Facebook. But before we talk about Bug, let's talk about the fact that this Saturday is the big announcement from podcastawards.com. Basically, they're going to let us know who had enough votes to be nominated as part of the podcast for the 2018 Podcast Awards. Around noonish Eastern time, I believe, they'll make that announcement. I've got my fingers crossed, and I hope all of you do also, because really, I mean, we got to be in it to win it. So hopefully enough folks got in there and nominated UFO Buster Radio so that we can make a showing and let people know that we are here for a reason. I additionally want to thank the folks that are listening in France, of all countries. I mean, there's no way I would have thought that I'd be listened to by folks in France. But if you're listening from France, thank you very much. Your numbers are coming through really strong and loud, as well as other places, of course, like Canada, UK, United States, Australia. But France was surprising to me. Thank you, France, for listening to UFO Buster Radio and Manny Moonraker, the craziness. But the reason that I talk about this social media madness is because you would have seen Bug the UFO Hunter as the new mascot for UFO Buster Radio. But something funny happened with Bug. And when it happened, I thought about you guys, the listeners of UFO Buster Radio. Now, how did this happen? How did I make that correlation? I made that correlation because many of you contact me through social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And a lot of you, and I don't know if a lot of other ufology shows get this, or paranormal shows, but a lot of you like to share your stories, your experiences, your history in this topic. And a good 90% of you ask that the information is not shared, especially not with the authorities. And that's important because this is where Bug's story comes in. So a couple of days ago, I was heading out with old Bug, the UFO hunter, to take him out for a morning stroll about 4 o'clock in the morning because no fucks given, that's when I do it. But unfortunately for my neighbor, he happened to be outside with his dog. Now, his dog outweighs Bug by about 50 pounds. And sadly enough, my neighbor does not believe in leashing the dog. So, old little Bugs, which weighs about maybe 35 pounds at best, he decides to kind of push the door open because he was tired of waiting for me to put my shoes on. And Bugs immediately sounded the alarm. He puffed up his chest, started barking and growling. And when I tell you that this dog that weighs about 80 pounds ran one way and the owner ran a totally different way, it was the proudest moment a mascot owner could ever have, because Bug kind of certified that he was coming out and the coast needed to be cleared. Needless to say that, as a good neighbor, I decided I needed to at least say, scold or say something to Bug because he cleared the neighborhood, the block. So I said, Bug, really? And we just kept on walking. No fucks given. You need to leash your dog. So while the neighbor was scurrying back down the block to try to catch up to his dog, it reminded me of all the stories that I get, because Bug really has a Napoleon complex, right? Bug is little, but he doesn't give a damn. If he sees something that he needs to growl at or he needs to bark at, he will do it. That reminds me of many of you. And that is that no matter how your story is, no matter how far-fetched you think it is, you get out there and you tell your story to people that want to listen. And sometimes the people that want to listen only want to listen to be negative about it, but you still get out there day after day and you tell your story. But there are those that listen that are afraid because they hit me up on social media and ask me not to tell their story forward or not to let the authorities find out about their story. But the thing is that it is those stories that are most important. We get tired of listening about the old UFO incidents. We need to know what's happening now, what's happening to you. You have to be like Bug and go out there with a Napoleon complex. And you need to go ahead and bark and growl your story out there no matter what anybody says, because there's evidence in there. Which is what ufology is lacking, solid evidence that cannot be refuted. You may hold the key to that evidence in one way or another. But if you're scared, sitting in a corner somewhere, hoping that you're not ridiculed, that evidence will never get out. It will never see the light of day. You need to go out there like Bugs, the UFO hunter. You need to pound on your chest, puff it up real good, and bark and growl as loud as you can. And make sure that behind that you have a hashtag #NoFucksGiven attitude. That is the attitude of UFO Buster Radio for 2018. That's the attitude you should have. Because the truth of the matter is, anyone that poo-poos your story or says you're full of shit, really look at the messenger at that point and look at what they're about. Put it behind you. Because for every one naysayer or negative Nancy that's out there, there's about 10 or 12 people who not only experience something similar, but are willing to listen to your story and even pass it forward and share it with other people. So be like Bug the UFO hunter, get out there, bark and growl as much as you can. Don't worry about your size. You're a giant when it comes to all these other guys. You put your story out, you tell them what happened, and if they have anything negative to say, just bypass them. They mean nothing to you, and they mean nothing to us.
Hey guys, this is Marty Angler from Angling Waters Outdoors, and you're listening to my pally, Manny Moonraker, right here on UFO Buster Radio Network. Hey Manny, you know why I fish at night? Can you say UFO? UFO. That's right.
By the way, for all of you that have been asking for merchandise, t-shirts, and so forth, we did stop pretty much producing any of those because the companies that we were using were not reliable, and some of the stuff they were putting out was pretty crappy as such. But we have new stuff. We have up to, I guess, 11 designs now, and we're adding stuff weekly. The best thing about this particular company called TeePublic is that they actually have sales throughout the month where they drop the price significantly of mugs, stickers or whatever, and to make sure the quality was good. I recently ordered a bunch of stickers and notebooks and things like that just to make sure that their printing is on the up and up, and it is. So if you're interested in any of the UFO Buster Radio merchandise at TeePublic, the link is in the description. Check it out, as well as the link for this article that we have going on here, because I was quite shocked when I read this that anyone in their right mind would actually admit to this in an official capacity. This is kind of weird. The article that I'm talking about was actually published by the nationalinterest.org. The title of this thing is Air Force Hardens Satellites to Prepare for Space War. Now, if you are a conspiracy theorist, like Third Phase of Moon people, or the other rubber dicker, Tony, whatever the hell his name is, I don't even care anymore. But you know who it is. He's got over 1 million followers because he promotes a lot of crazy shit. Anyway, it's fascinating to see this, especially after old Trumpy decided to sign this declaration that we're going to create a space force. This article says this: the Air Force, space technology, and weapons developers are actually working to quickly prepare for a major space war, and they're doing this by accelerating weapons programs and fast-tracking satellite protections or aka hardening systems. Now, if you are into conspiracy theories, you see Trump signing this. A few months ago, there was also talk about Space Force at the end of last year. A couple of representatives got together, put this idea together. And then you also have right around the same time the old Tic Tac and Gimbal videos coming out of To the Stars Academy. And if you're into conspiracies, you're putting all this thing together and it is like just lining up. You're basically lining up the dominoes and eventually something is going to kick it over and you're going to have the aha moment because you think that Darth Vader is going to be just on the other side of the moon along with Megatron to take on the planet. But the article itself is not really about that. So you really have to dig into it and read it totally. At first I was thinking, who the hell would say something like this? Who in their right mind in the Air Force? I mean, I'm thinking it's fake. I'm thinking this is not a real story. However, they did quote someone from the Air Force. And then, that kind of gives you a kick in the pants because you're thinking, someone from the Air Force actually confirmed something like this? Well, let's see. Major William Russell, Mr. Russell, or Major Russell, is an Air Force space spokesman, and he told a group known as the Warrior Mavens this following quote: "The space budget focuses on building more jam-resistant GPS satellites, improving missile warning, improving space situational awareness, and increasing the nation's ability to defend its most vital assets on orbit. It adds additional resilience features to user protection and existing satellite communication systems." None of that really tells you that ET is coming to kick somebody's ass like an Independence Day. It's basically saying that we have rubber dickers like Igor Asherbelly and the Asgardians going into space, and they could start fucking around and screwing with the technology that's up there that's designed to help Americans and people around the world, and we could have rogue nations going up there and starting shit. Now, is there an underlying reason for this? Yeah, of course you can read into it and say that ET is pretty much getting a notice saying, we're going to start building shit up because you're not going to be able to come in and out however the fuck you feel like it. A lot of that may come from the fact that they talk about in this fast-tracking satellite. As we've known from previous discussions that things like radars can be programmed to only target things that are going at certain velocities. But according to this, fast-tracking satellites seem to be at the forefront of this budget increase of things that need to be protected. Now, the rest of the article is linked in the description. is linked in the description, but it has to do a lot with protecting these type of satellites and equipment in space from radiation and those kind of attacks that might, in fact, keep these smaller satellites and things like that from surviving any kind of, let's say, electronic or radiation attack, or just basically being in space. It really doesn't go into things like we need to defend from ET, but you most certainly can read that into it. There is always a public message, and then there's always a message that's held only among the ranks that have to deal with this in the military. For all that said, you're going to have to make the point of reading this and actually coming up to your own conclusion as to what this is. Is this an admission by the Air Force that there are some threats out there that are pretty much, with no fucks given, attacking our satellites and jamming them and keeping them from functioning properly? Or are we just looking to protect ourselves from earthbound countries who are willing to go into space and start stirring shit up? It's your decision to make. You make the call, but first read the article, because the article, like I said, you can definitely infer things that this might be something more not of this planet. But when you look at every single country in this world currently trying to use SpaceX to deliver their packages into space, it is very possible that this is really a way to protect ourselves from people from Earth going into like low orbit, any kind of orbit that a satellite, especially a military satellite, would be involved in, and being rubber-dicked off of stupidity or intentional actions. Then again, you could always believe in the fact that it's ET that's causing all this madness, and that's who we have to protect ourselves from, which, to be honest, it's not too far-fetched, because we have the gimbal video, we have the Tic Tac video, which are completely and totally unexplained from the perspective of an Air Force pilot. And what can you do? I mean, if they're saying that there's shit up there that they can't handle, why not reinforce our satellites in space? Why not keep us protected from the shit that's coming in and dancing circles around our equipment? That is a podcast for today. That is a report. I invite you, again, follow me on social media. Also, like and share. The best things you can do to the podcast is not buy a t-shirt. It's not buying a book or sticker. It's liking and sharing the podcast. That leads to a larger audience. And we have a Napoleon complex here at UFO Buster Radio. We give no fucks to the larger podcast. We give no fucks to their followers, except for the ones we share. But overall, we're here to conquer this topic, and we're going to do it like we give a damn. Ciao.